Hello, I'm Dave from Dave Jones Music. Come with me as we go through a day in my life as a busker. I've been busking for about a year. I was looking for an outlet for my music, but I have a bit of an issue with commitment. I don't particularly like working with other people because, they expect me to turn up. And the whole idea of professional gigs, being locked down to dates and times, just wasn't going to work for me. Let me show you how I plan and execute a typical day out on the street busking. The first thing I do is check the weather. It never really gets cold here, but the wind and the rain can be a bit of a pain. The next thing is to sort out some playlists. You can see here I use backing tracks for the instrumental part and I provide the vocals. I'll talk a little bit about backing tracks later because I know it's a controversial subject. I try to mix it up a little bit so that there's not too many of the same sort of songs in sequence. I don't want somebody to come along and think I'm just an Elvis Presley singer or I'm just a Frank Sinatra singer. So I mix it up and everyone gets a little bit of everything. Okay, so typically I take a couple of mics. I've also got these little pop filters that go over the top. I got those from Amazon. Helps with the wind noise a little bit because I'm sort of out in the elements. I just use a Shure SM58. I find they're the best going. A couple of leads. The other thing I take with me is this thing called an iRig, which is an audio interface, and this is how I record the audio on my phone. So I've just got a normal XLR input there, which I run a cable from the mix out from the PA. And then I've got a lead here which goes into my phone. And the fidelity is actually pretty good. One little trick for young players, you'll see I've got a gain knob here. Now when I really crank up the PA, I need that back pretty much just a smidgen over 0. Now I didn't check, and I had it up on 2, actually it was a little bit over 2. And what that did was render me 90 minutes of pretty much unusable video. I did save one song out of it, which isn't too bad. It was just blasting out and was distorting at the top end. In this case, I took my iPad for my backing tracks. Now, typically I just take my phone, but because I wanted to record some of the video of this outing, I took my phone and my iPad. Where I live, you need to display your permit issued by the city authorities. I took my speaker stand, mic stand, and of course the PA itself. I use an Electra Voice eVerse 8 with built-in mixer. Now there are hundreds of reviews for this speaker on YouTube and you don't need another one from me. But I will say I think it is the perfect street performance PA. Long battery life, it's rugged, check out the bruises, just the right amount of bass and very loud. I signed up with busker.co and availed myself of their electronic tip collection system. For about 20 bucks, they provided a sign, which I display, and people can snap the QR code and give me a tip. I was skeptical at first, but people actually use it. I've set the default tip to $5, which is what most people give, but there are exceptions. My latest gadget is a Yeti Sidekick bag to put the delicate items that don't like to get wet or damaged. Somehow I get all that stuff into my little wagon and I head off. Parking is impossible where I go, so I take the 800 metre walk to the light rail, which for some reason is called the G line. The stations are colloquially known as G spots. I had no trouble finding it. 50 cents takes you all the way to Surfers Paradise. There's probably 100 designated busking sites in the city of the Gold Coast, but in reality there's probably only 9 or 10 that you'd actually use, with 4 of them in the Cavill Avenue Mall. It's usually shady, lots of places for people to sit and listen, and protected from most of the wind. This is my favourite spot just here, and it sits across the aisle from what used to be an Irish bar. It was amazing because you'd start your gig with at least 10 or 15 people sitting by the rail as a captive audience. They were almost always receptive to some free entertainment. Sadly, it's now a Thai noodle house, which I don't think is going to work for my type of act. Never mind, as I've been wanting to try the spot on the beach at the end of the Mall. Something appealing about singing while overlooking one of the world's best beaches. Now, I didn't come here to offer anyone advice, I'm really just telling you what I do. But I will say this one thing. The very, very first time you go busking, it can be very confronting and you feel very exposed. It's not like going to a venue where there's a venue owner and the bouncers and somebody's going to give you drinks during your breaks and all of that sort of stuff. You are very, very alone and it can be very, very confronting. All I can say to people is, just do it. I know the things that you're imagining, you're thinking, oh, people are going to jeer me and throw rotten tomatoes and maybe steal some of my stuff or steal my tips, whatever. By and large, that doesn't happen. If you're confident in yourself, you know your material, you know what to do, you know your sound will look pretty good, just go out and do it. Don't worry about the people. They're not really paying that much attention to you. I know the very first time I did it, just setting up the gear, I thought, oh, everyone's watching me, they're waiting, there's this anticipation. They're just getting on with their day, they barely notice you. So even though I was very, very nervous on my first time, not about the performance, just this being exposed, just being open to the world, but it's all in your head, just do it. So anyway, I set up my gear and started. I was halfway through the first song when I realised this was going to be a tough gig. It was like playing into an empty room. I was getting absolutely nothing from the crowd. I thought I'd give them a few songs to warm up. Now, we get a lot of international tourists to our town, which is great because that's what keeps the whole local economy going. But it did occur to me that the space was mainly being taken up by groups of people who probably didn't speak English as a first language and who had no knowledge or interest in my style of music. It's hard to maintain the energy when you're getting nothing back, and I could have simply moved to a different location, but to be honest, I couldn't be bothered, so I decided to treat it as an outdoor practice session. I had to deal with loud motorcycles, ambulances and several other distractions, but you know what they say, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. So I finished the 2 sets, got almost no tips and headed home. I looked through my phone while sitting on the tram and noticed that someone had snapped my QR code and left me a $10 tip. After most busking sessions, I meet my wife and our puppy at the local watering hole. I like to think I'm part of the circular economy, so I give my tips to the bar staff and they convert them into beer. Anyway, I'll play the one song that didn't suffer from distortion, mistakes and all, but just before I do, I just want to mention the use of backing tracks. Okay, now I don't want to be contentious, and let's leave professional entertainers out of the picture just for the moment. Now, in a lot of the busking forums and on YouTube, etc., a lot of the busking elite like to talk down to people who do what I do, and they refer to us as karaoke buskers. Apparently, if you're not playing a musical instrument, you're not authentic. Well, if you think about the fire eaters and the jugglers and the living statues, I mean, they don't play an instrument. If you think of some of the great entertainers of history, Michael Jackson didn't play an instrument. Frank Sinatra couldn't tap 2 sticks together. He didn't play a musical instrument. And the sort of music that I do, the sort of songs that I sing, need that big gutsy sound behind it. They're big bawdy ballads and they're loud and they're... Imagine trying to do New York, New York with a 6-string acoustic guitar. It'd just sound ridiculous. So I need that sound. Now, okay, I could bring a 23-piece orchestra along with me. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. But, we'd need a bus and we've got to split $10 in tips. It's just not going to work. I'm going to keep using backing tracks and the rest of the world's just going to have to live with it.
Let me tell you about a girl I know. Well, she's my baby and she lives next door. Every morning before the sun comes up, she brings me coffee in my favorite cup. But how I know, yeah I know, Hallelujah, I just love her so. When I'm in trouble and I have no friends, I know she'll be with me until the end. Everybody asks me how I know. I smile at them and say she told me so. That's how I know, yeah, I know. Hallelujah, I just love her so. And when I call her on the telephone and I tell her that I'm all alone, by the time I count from 1 to 4, she'll be on my door. Every evening when the sun goes down and there ain't nobody else around, she kisses me and she holds me tight and tells me everything's alright. That's how I know, hey, I know. Hallelujah, I just love her so. When I call her on a telephone and I tell her that I'm all alone, by the time I count from 1 to 4, she'll be on my door. Every evening when the sun goes down and there is nobody else around, she kisses me and she holds me tight and tells me, Daddy, everything's alright. That's how I know, yeah, I know. Hallelujah, I just love her so. Hallelujah, I just love her so. Woo, woo, woo. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hallelujah, I just love her so. Hallelujah, I just love her so.